You decided to wind down your 20-year career as a chef that included your vegan catering company, Love More Gourmet, in San
Yeah.
Francisco,
Yes.
California, your decade-long chocolate company, Naramore Chocolates, and being a private chef for global celebrities, world-renowned scientists, and billionaires with white marble kitchens in Manhattan. Take us back to that moment when you decided that what inspired you to make that specific decision?
Obviously, a lifelong passion with cuisine began in my teen years, and I ran with it, right? And, as you named all these accomplishments and creations along the way, and it culminated in I had a 7-year stint in New York City. And like you said, I was working in the kitchens of billionaires. I was working with Tony Robbins' team, the founder of Cirque du Soleil. My chocolates made it to him, Isabel Allende. I took my cooking career farther than I ever imagined. And I felt very satisfied, very accomplished. I was a small town girl from the north coast of California. And here, years later, I set out to accomplish my passion, which was providing divine foods, across the lands, as it turned out. And I made it all the way to New York City, billionaires' kitchens, white marble kitchens, views for days of Central Park. Like, I made it, right? It's like, that's what it felt like. I made it. And I was making a gorgeous living, had my own 2-bedroom apartment in one of the more prestigious neighborhoods in Brooklyn. Like, it was like everything I set forth to accomplish, I did. And as the journey went on, I'd say there were two things that happened. One, I reached my 40s. And at a certain point, I understood my body may not appreciate the labor as I got older, right? Of being a chef. And I was a beast in the kitchen. I would whip up 16 dishes in like 3 hours. Just, I became kind of a machine, very, uh, very effective, very on it in the kitchen. And, to this day, I wish I had like a fast forward video of me in the kitchen at the time. I wasn't recording myself, but like I was a beast. And I reached a certain level of professionality and all of that. And I was like, okay, in the long term, my body might not love this. It takes a toll on the body. And then even more so though, and this is like, I don't know if you've experienced this, but when there's like what feels like a tectonic shift in one's life, but it starts as like a little rumble, like deep beneath the surface as maybe an idea or a thought or a, like a feeling. A lot of my life is kind of worked through me that way. It's very intuitive and comes like the future comes in hints, right? So I started to get these inklings. I started to get these hints. At the same time, I was studying a powerful healing modality called the Universal Health Principles and became a practitioner. I'm also a practitioner in many other healing modalities. So it was like food and healing were always my two strong points or my passions or just what my soul always guided me to do and learn and study. I had these inklings, I had these understandings from deep within that the way I've put it is that I needed to come out from behind the stove. I knew I had more to bring to the world. It was like everything felt almost kind of subversive, my influence through the food, through, highly influential people, right? Chelsea Clinton, that was another one. I just remembered. It was like I would make food with so much love and so much intention. And as we like to say in certain, mindsets, is like high vibration, right? And I felt like I was, literally into the political systems, into highly influential people, feeding them this. But I was like, hold on a second. Like, I know I can step forward and be a leader, essentially. Like that was the tectonic shift, is that there was a leadership, there was a feeling, there was a like, lady, come on, you know, you have the personality, you have the heart, you know, I have intelligence, like all the pieces to really be able to come out from behind the stove and really be more of a beacon for inspiration, for empowerment, for women in particular, and for healing on this planet.
I
So
so love
that
this. And
yeah.
while you were explaining it, I was having that sentence on my tongue that I felt you wanted to become a leader. And now
Mhm.
the question is, whenever you feel compelled in life to shift your life so dramatically from
Mhm.
serving and being a
Mhm.
subservient almost to
Mhm.
those who lead and tell other people
Mhm.
what to do,
Yes.
and this is very brave and courageous for a person to come out of behind the stove, so to speak, and to
Mhm.
say, I want to lead. Now, my question would be why? Why did you want to lead? What did you see at that time? What did you experience at that
Mhm.
time that made you say, I'm not happy with what current leaders are putting up in this
Yep.
world?
Yep. You got
What,
it.
why would you
Mhm.
want to lead yourself? What would you make better than any leader in this world?
Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, I didn't necessarily want to. Like you said, it was very brave. It's very terrifying. Thank God now, you know, as a coach, I've helped women through some of these layers of what can be really scary to come out from behind whatever it is, right? For each woman, it's different. You know, I think I had some grand resistance to it, if I'm to be really honest. It was like, that's scary, that's vulnerable, like, whoa, you know, and like, who am I? You know, there was those layers to work through. And that was that tectonic shift, though. It was kind of like, yes, I made the decision, but I made it in tandem with what felt like a calling, or, you know, it felt like, okay, you know, like I said, I was started to listen, and I started to listen deeper, and, you know, and I was comfortable with my cooking. I was comfortable behind the stove. I knew that I can still step into a kitchen and just go, "Ding," and magic happens. Like I could practically do it blindfolded. This was new, and this was terrifying, and this was like, you know, a different angle to even approach existence, right? That said, your question is excellent. I had spent a lot of time already around very powerful people, very cutting edge leaders, bringing literally new technologies, new systems to the planet. I'm all about that. I'm all about the cutting edge. I'm all about the future. And so I had spent the better part of a decade, again, kind of in a subservient role, even in those situations. I saw a lot, I'm just going to name it, I saw a lot of abuse of power. I saw behaviors that I was like, whoa, we're supposed to be the evolved ones. Um, I saw certain, okay, well, guess we're going to go there. So my business is called The Modern Queen, right? That's the business that I created out of all of this that we're speaking. And part of it was this like reclamation of my own, like, queen, you know, like, hey, I'm gonna not be anyone's servant, like, ever again, basically, in any way, shape, or form. And part of it was also because I saw women who were like these queen archetypes, and I didn't like how they were treating people. Again, this abuse of power. I saw some not good examples. And so I was like, I don't want to ever put myself above anybody or think I'm above anybody. I don't want to ever feel like someone needs to owes me anything or any kind of subservient. I want to help women to become queens of their own lives and quote unquote rule, whether it's their family, their business, you know, whatever that is to each woman, but to have that sovereignty, right? That's the word. It's like this deep sovereignty that is outside of the realm of any kind of subservience, and certainly outside of the realm of abuse of power. So yeah, I would say there was a deep motivating force with that, that was part of my own coming out from behind the stove, coming out, you know, from being second fiddle, coming out from situations where I saw leaders not really being the leaders that I imagine the world needs.
from swimming face to face with sharks and manta rays in
Mm.
Bora Bora to
Mhm.
rappelling down the waterfalls in Costa Rica. What drives your curiosity about
Aw.
this beautiful world? And why do you seek these
Mm.
particular experiences, traveling, experience other cultures?
Oh, I love it's like make me tear up for some reason. Because it's just because I just love that question and because it's so, it's so been a huge part of my life. I have traveled a
Mm-hmm.
lot. I was just talking with my partner about it last night. Just let the things he and I alone have done in the last 5 years, let alone my entire existence. Um, it's because I love the world. And I love the natural world. I love animals very much, and I love nature, but I love cultures. Like, I love Paris, I love Istanbul, I love Mumbai, I love Rome. Like, I've been to all those cities and then some, and I've lived in Hawaii, and like you said, swam with manta rays and Bora Bora, and done, so many whitewater rafted this summer in Costa Rica, planted cacao trees, which is amazing. I got to actually plant chocolate trees in Puerto Rico just a month ago, and I'd say what drives me is that my love of life. It's just my absolute joy and love for existence itself. I just love. And so to be able to explore different landscapes, different cultures, it just is what makes life truly magical. Um, and it's just I've done it since I can remember.
These cultural mixes and matches are always very interesting for me to see. And how that relates now to your music is one of
Mm,
the most
mm,
interesting parts that I also find
mm.
about you, because you are not only a coach, but you also do music, just like
Mhm.
me. And
Oh, you do too. I didn't know that. I didn't
yes,
catch that part. Oh, cool.
yeah, I started first of all as a musician, singer, songwriter, very early in my life, artist
Oh,
and musician. So that was
beautiful.
my thing. And later on, I discovered coaching and all that
Hmm.
stuff. And
Hmm.
I see so many similarities between
I
us
know.
too,
I
because
see that.
been raised in Asia, right? This influence of the Asian music is so prevalent
Mhm.
for me personally. But then again, this Western concept of music is also very interesting and just inspiring my creativity. And now you released music that is a fusion between different musical cultures, right? I feel the
Mm,
intention
mm,
that you have with that
mm,
music, which
mm,
is healing, which is opening up that feminine energy, being in charge, so to speak, being
mhm.
the your own leader as a woman. And I
Uh-huh.
can feel that
Sovereign.
in your music.
Mm,
Yes, the
mhm,
sovereignty. Yes.
mhm, mhm.
So tell us the story of when you actually discovered music for yourself
Oh,
and
man.
singing as a healing medium, and how you started your singer-songwriter journey. I am pretty sure it's an exciting one.
Oh man, there's okay, I'll just start really briefly by saying I grew up with music. My dad plays guitar. We always had music playing in the house. I'm the youngest of four kids. My brother's 8 years older than me. I grew up in the 80s. He was hella into, I don't know, like Echo and the Bunnymen and Depeche Mode and some industrial music and like very kind of emo, alternative, Lush, My Bloody Valentine. There were like, so, and then my dad, meanwhile, was like the Beatles, Dire Straits, like Rolling Stones, Grateful Dead. And then, we didn't have a lot of money growing up. We did a lot of camping, which was great. And then we'd go to a lot of concerts. So I grew up, seeing U2 and Sting and multiple Grateful Dead shows because my dad's a huge Deadhead. So I grew up, and then one last thing, I adore my father and my brother. I call them audiophiles. They like geek out on stereo equipment. They even go to like shows and like they'll do like, we'll sit in the living room and they'll listen to the new whatever little gadget they got that changes the sound and its subtlety. So I grew up with like music being such a part of my family fabric. Now, I remember being in chorus when I was like, 11 or something, and I thought I had a terrible voice. I I don't know. I don't know. the teacher thought, I don't know what happened there, but I just remember always not thinking I had a good singing voice. Um, that was there for the longest time. So this is where the story gets fun. Speaking of Russian exes, I fell madly in love. Man, stories. I was a sailor. I became a sailor in the town of Sausalito, just north of San Francisco, in my early 20s. Um, and in that time, I met who became my husband for a time. This beautiful Russian man. We're still very dear friends, and I love him to pieces. And so if I was subtle, if I was feminine, if I was sort of coming into myself, right, in my 20s, like we do, he was loud. He was the life of the party. He was a singer. He played guitar. He played all these Russian songs. I learned some of them. I'd sing with him. And there was this time, oh, the young love. I mean, it was so romantic. I took him to the forest of my homeland up on the North Coast. It's the Redwoods. It's the North Coast of California. Absolutely beautiful. And I brought him up there to show him, where I grew up. And we were just in love. It was just young love, like a fairy tale. We were basically a fairy tale. And he sang. And somewhere in those woods, out of me, sprung my voice. Makes me tear up once again. I was so in love and I was so enraptured, that it was this moment. And I sang to him. And my voice bubbled up like a pure spring. And I remember his eyes got big. And my eye, we were both like, wow, it just came out of me. And there it was. And as I'm remembering this, I'm remembering other details. I think even before that, I had been brazen enough to put a Craigslist ad out saying divas looking for a band kind of thing. So I think I always wanted to sing, but it was that defining moment where I then was like, there's my voice. I found it. And I have love and this sort of I guess we can call it outspoken nature of my husband, my husband, that helped to, birth me into my singing value or, understanding of myself. And then from there, he and I, like I said, we would do duets at parties and then I started to write songs. They started to kind of little, and the songs come in different ways. They're usually just these little trickles, and I'll keep a voice memo and then develop a song from the voice memos that I feel to develop from. And then I was in a Bulgarian women's choir for a minute. I had a singing instructor. She was from, I want to say Kazakhstan
No, really?
Yeah, she's amazing. Her name's Irina. Oh my God. I'm sorry, Irina. I'm spacing her last name right now. She's a fairly renowned singer and definitely at the festival scenes and stuff. She's just amazing. And so she amassed a Bulgarian singing choir with a group of women that she was teaching, and we were studying with her. So we did that, and I always loved world music. I sing in 17 languages, songs like I've learned songs, in 17 different languages, and it's just, and there's other things. I've been in other choirs. I sing in an international Creative Commons electronic group called Triad. And I did some songwriting and backup vocals and some main vocals with them. So it was always I was always busy, AF, cooking, living, wild adventures, Burning Man, divorces, moving to Hawaii, moving to New York, just life has just been woo, it's been an adventurous lifetime. And so music kind of always was hanging out with me, and I never stopped, but I also always was troubled that I didn't make my own music. I'm with my partner now, he's an extraordinary coach, 7-figure coach for 7-figure entrepreneurs. And it's been one heck of a ride with him. And woo, that's its own story. But, with that said, he is an advocate for his company is even called Uplift Millions. So he's all about uplifting people into their greatness and into their greatest potential, and also making good money doing so. And he, combines all of that. So I had put all my efforts into my business, built a 6-figure business, like within the first year. Everything happened just so fast as soon as I stepped out from the stove. But I had this lingering, and I would get mopey about it. I'd be like, why haven't I made music yet? Oh, why isn't it happening for me? I'm only, oh, geez, I'm 44 now, or whatever. And he finally, he has he can give you a little can of whoop ass, and with love, the tough love. And he was just like, Caitlin, it is a crime to humanity if you die without putting your music out there. Those are literally the words that he spoke to me, and they landed. So I had done this Facebook Live. My partners, so the mother of his child, who's a dear friend of ours, who's also an extraordinary photographer, Jade Beal. She actually has done the photography for a lot of my branding, and then now for my album cover, for my cookbook that's coming. And we just have a very, very beautiful relationship, thank God, with her. So her sister, who's a musician, and Jade comes from a musical family. Her mom plays harp, and I think anyways, there's a lot of music on that in her family. So her sister Sapphire saw my music and was like, wow, your voice, you're this voice of an angel, she said. And she's like, there's a recording studio, really great recording studio right there in Tucson, where you are. I live in Tucson, Arizona. And I was like, wow. Now, granted, I think that had happened a little while before my partner Alok said those defining words, those serious words of you have to do this. So I had already had that information. I think I had already contacted the producer. I think life got busy. He said those words. I remembered that she had shared that information. I reached out again and was like, okay, I'm ready. And then began the process of creating this EP, Destiny.
And of course, I listened
Yep.
into all the tracks. I find them this is the most important part about creating music, right? That one thing is to love the process, right, of singing, of creating music, and the other part is when you think about it as a business, right, which is completely different from having a hobby, right? You have to think in terms of how does my love and passion serve an actual audience. So this is also one of the things that I teach my students, for example, that we kind of have to take that from hobby to actual business without losing your passion, right? Without losing your authenticity and actually finding kind of your signature style, right?
Yes.
What I find so interesting about your music is that you, which is so connected to your coaching, that you have a red line between those two, right? Because in your coaching, it's about empowering the woman, right, to create a queen that can serve in leadership or through leadership, right?
Yes.
That has kind of this self-proclaimed power that she has, and to use that for good, right? And you kind of create a storyline that translates or trickles into your music or through your music as well, which you also use on your website, right? This is one story, one big story, and you use different mediums, if you will, to kind of teach and heal and give power to those who need it because they have such a tremendous message, maybe, or purpose that they are serving on this earth. Tell
That's
us
beautifully
more.
said. Thank you.
Tell us more about the main message of your lyrics and the music for those who have not listened into your music just yet.
Whew. Well, everything you just said hit it. It's like, yep, I second that. It was really beautifully spoken. Uh, my music is very from my soul. That's the best I can say. Just comes straight from the heart and soul. The message in this particular EP, say there's a couple messages through it. One, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a Pisces and I tend to hang out on the spiritual side of things, kind of on the other side of the veil, so to speak. But I think I'm very aware. I live existentially. I think existentially, and so there's just this. I live knowing, we only have so much time um, on Earth, right? And I think that's partially also the drive behind my deep adventures. Like, I just want to live as much life as I possibly can, like to its fullest, right? Um, and so, my songs, they do tap into even maybe a sadness, I think, in some instances, but like from the deepest heart place of like my song "Stay," for instance. It's like, stay with me, like just stay, and we all know at some point or another, we all make that big giant leap into the unknown, that we call death, right? So this is kind of maybe the darker side, or the depth of it, maybe, though, is just this understanding. And so, but it's like, one of the lines is, we're not long for this world, so take me in your arms now. So it could be anything from your cat to your lover to your parents. Stay is definitely, I think, about my parents who are getting older. And that just kind of like how much I'm gonna cry, how much we love, you know how much we love, and how much can we love each other in this lifetime. um oof. So it's emotional, but then the other part is like, okay, we've got this life to live, and like, let's bring each other home. Let's come home. Let's be each other's safe place. Let's be each other's healing from, like, ancestral pain. Like, the song Overland is a lot about that. And this interesting Native American chant came through me. I don't have Native American blood, but damned if I don't have a Native American soul somewhere in there, however that works. So that music isn't that literally came from my soul, not something I heard, and I'm like, wow, okay, so that's there. And so, in this deep reclamation, so that's the other, is like reclaiming our souls, reclaiming land, in the case of the Native Americans, deep, deep wounds, of our species. And how do we heal that? How do we reclaim our souls from pain and shame and suffering of lifetimes, and come through this lifetime with the healing antidote, the healing balm? So I'd like to think my songs are a balm, they're a balm for the soul. And I've had beautiful feedback, from people who are like, they feel very soothed and comforted. And I'm like, wow, thank you, because that's one thing we can do for each other, especially, damn, things have gotten very hyper intense on our planet. I think people's nervous systems are like, whoa, So to create music that also has a balm and it's like almost like a safe place that you can turn to, that also has, not makes you feel, but people, I've had that, like, people feel when they hear these songs. And so those, yeah. And then one last thing actually is my song "For Eternity." Well, that's a whole thing. That is to channel. Some people call it like light language. I don't. I just call it from my soul. There's just kind of nonsensical words that just came through me during a very hard moment with COVID. Actually, I had a real hard go with that illness and really going through a dark spell with it. And my sister was visiting, and she said, "Caitlin, sing, like whatever's going on, like sing through that, like get yourself through. Like what your soul like is bigger than any illness. Like sing." And part of what that song is composed of is what I channeled in that moment that my partner happened to record. So that track is like, that is a reclamation. It is a like nothing's, like almost like an immortality, a sense that the spirit can never be broken, no matter what darkness or illness or pain might befall a person. That's like literally that song is like, like that's at the core of it based on that experience that I had. And then I brought it to my producer and he's like, that sounds Middle Eastern. And so then we found the rhythms and we found the instrumentals, and we brought in a violinist who could play Middle Eastern violin. And, then we developed this song that then I speak almost religious. I'm not religious, but I speak almost religiously in that song, touching into deep ancient, spirituality, really deep ancient, like way back, and even like Egyptian, which is another part of my soul. I've always felt very like I am on somewhere along the soul's pathway, an Egyptian thing occurred. Same thing with the Native Americans. So both of those made their way, kind of naturally through my songs. Yeah, really a lot of healing, my own healing that then, hopefully is representative and beneficial for others' healing as well.
I
Yep.
think what your music does is it expands beyond the boundaries that many people think they have, because you explore
Mm-hmm.
yourself so many different sounds, so many different
Mm-hmm.
ways. If you say you sing in 17 different languages, so you allow yourself to explore so much, to explore so much about your soul, so much about your identity. You don't stop at the American way of doing music, right? You explore more sounds, more intricacies of other music theories, if
Mm-hmm.
you will, other
Mm-hmm.
instruments, other ways of expressing yourself, which I find so beautiful. I always try to teach that my students, to listen more into the music that is around you, around the world, right? It's not only the
Yes.
Western music, like it's
No.
so little the Western music that we actually have. And if you go into the world music, like you talk about it here, I actually studied that because I knew how rich it was and I wanted to know everything about it. Like the
Yeah.
Indian music alone is
Yeah.
incredibly rich when we look at
Oh, the
what they
tablas.
have developed
Mm-hmm.
and the
Mm-hmm.
theories behind it, such intricate systems, right? And what I find interesting and beautiful about your music is that you don't fall into the pain or the drama of the things that,
Mm-hmm.
and it is very hard. If I compare that, for example, to how I do music or how I started to do music, I was celebrating the pain, because, and that's the only
Mm.
Russian thing about me, I would say, because we
Oh
really
my God.
we
That's
really
very,
celebrate the pain.
my God. Yes.
And this
Very,
is
very,
so
very quickly with
mm,
that, I have a hilarious memory of bringing my ex-husband to Tennessee when my grandmother was still alive, where my mom got married to her now husband. Um, and, like Tennessee, very deep South, Christian, like conservative. My grandma was the sweetest thing in the world. He sings one of his Russian songs at the reception, the wedding reception. And my grandma was like, well, that was nice. What was that song about? In her cute little accent, And he was like, it was about the soldier dying on the field and the ravens eating him or something like that. And she's, well, that's nice. It just went on, like, kind of a little like, oh. But yes, the Russians are very good at celebrating the pain. Winter, don't freeze my horse. That was another song we would sing. Yeah. So anyways, very much understand that.
I'm so glad that
But
you
no, I
do.
don't celebrate the pain. I transcend the pain. That's the whole
Yes.
point. It's transcending. It's transcendent music.
Yes, and this is so helping
Yes.
because it actually lifts people up. It doesn't allow
Mm-hmm.
them to ruminate in that pain for a
Mm-hmm.
lot of time. And my observation is that a lot of today's pop music actually is ruminating in that kind of pain.
True.
It's
It's true.
either hypersexual or it is keeping them down and
Right.
pain about love and not unmet love and having
Yep. And
relationships that don't work.
breakups galore, right?
Yes, yes.
Right.
So we
All of
need
that.
to
Mm-hmm.
cook in that soup for hours and hours and days and years, right? That's what's celebrated nowadays, which is why I
Mm-hmm.
find it so important, especially your celestial sounds. I
Mm-hmm.
feel are helping people the most because you
Mm-hmm.
take such a slow pace
Mm-hmm.
in those songs that actually
Mm-hmm.
allows people to go into themselves and to think about themselves and what these sounds do to them. I think this
Mm-hmm.
is one of the most valuable things that you can create
Mm-hmm.
in this EP and furthermore into the future,
Mm-hmm.
because you have the ability to lift people from the pain that they experience and actually find a sound that is healing, right?
Mm-hmm.
To go beyond the pain, to go beyond the struggle. And
Mm-hmm.
you have the struggle, we all have the struggle, but you find a way to go beyond that, and this is
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, this is amazing,
Thank
and
you. Thank
needs
you.
needs to find a way out into this world. So I'm really glad that you are on my show telling people
Yes.
about it.
Thank you. Yeah. And that is essentially the spirituality I come from is what you're speaking, are
Yeah.
these coherent fields and these that intelligence that's behind all of creation, and how much we can attune ourselves to that intelligence and that the frequency that is the order really of our bodies, of the plants, of all of actual created material, has that same code, so to speak, beneath it. And so the closer we are to that coherence, the healing, the harmony occurs on our body, and I believe on the planet as well. We seem to be very addicted to disharmony as a species. I couldn't say why, but I know my path has been aligning myself with these harmonic truths that I would even dare to call it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
believe nowadays that the most natural state of the body is healing. And it is a constant process that the body tries to find back the way back into that
Mm-hmm.
healing state.
Homeostasis. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Yeah.
and by aligning yourself with that kind of frequency or vibration, whatever you want to call it, you kind of align yourself with the most natural state of your body. And for
Yeah.
me personally, it was the longest journey. It was enormously hard for me to get out of that type of depressive state and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
painful and
Mm-hmm.
celebrating pain, ruminating, victimizing
Mm-hmm.
myself. And
Yeah. All of
it
that.
is very, very devastating. And I know that I'm not the only one, which is one of the reasons why I create music, why I coach, why we have the same
Mm-hmm.
mission, which is
Yeah.
beautiful, that we
Yes.
kind of come together and that we kind of put our hands together, right, in this mission to empower women in such a way. Because I
Yes.
personally believe the greatest power in this world is really the feminine power, the power that lies in women, that I believe we did not unlock just yet fully.
I am right there with you. Right there with you, sister. Yeah, 1,000%. Mm-hmm.
And you
Yep.
say that living creative dreams now is the
Mm-hmm.
antidote to suffering. I want to know
Mm.
what you mean by that.
When I am in my creative flow, whether it is painting, because I also paint, whether it's cooking and making these particular desserts are my thing, these healthy desserts, um, whether it's making music, whether it's doing healing work, whether it's coaching and creating a business and all the branding and like all those, I am happier. Like, period. I am more myself. I feel limitless. I feel like I am fulfilling who I am meant to be on the planet. Now, I get that not everyone is all, like some people are maybe you're scientists or doctors or, um, any variety of, athletes. Like there's so many different ways that humans beautifully express ourselves, right? And I believe when if creativity is our potential, because I believe it is, and when we tap into that potential, whether you're a scientist, a doctor, an athlete, or an artist, coach, all, whatever that might be for that person, whatever their particular talent or gift, or really um, what they're called to be in this lifetime, when we are enacting that and in the creative, because there is creativity in starting a medical practice, right? Like there's creativity, like being a scientist, that's hella creative, based on discovery. And I think you get my gist. When we are tapped in with our creative potential, I believe people are occupied doing God's work, doing their own tonality of God's work, whatever their gift is. And you don't have time for suffering then. You don't have time, ideally, it's like, because people I think are bored, and I think we like to create drama, and we like judge others, or we compare ourselves. And I am willing to bet that if every single person was completely linked in with their talent, their power, their creativity, and their passion, that we wouldn't have need for all this pain and hurting each other. I just really feel that we would be occupied creating what we want the world to be, not being victimized by the world that we have.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you because I feel that in the moment where you create something that comes from your soul, from your identity, you will not find time or even feel inspired, but in any way to compare yourself to others because you know what lives inside you.
And
You
you're
know,
happy in your own lane, right? You're
yes,
in your, yeah.
because it's
Mhm.
not because you are better, right?
No.
It's never about that. Once you
Mm-mm.
tap into the real creative self, it is always about finding yourself and the way how you can express yourself. This is such a fun game that you don't even find anything else more fun than this. Comparing yourself, competition, this is all like boring to those who have truly
Yes,
found that
it is.
lane of creativity, right? And you don't even find it interesting to find
Mm.
out who's better because you
Mm.
then know exactly that by inspiring others, by lifting others up into the same realm, by helping them find their own creativity, you are magnetizing your own creativity again because you know exactly what inspires you. Other people who are creative, other creative mediums, if you will. And so you are kind of selfish in that way, but then in the most beautiful way because you know by creating this beautiful world where everybody is in themselves creating beautiful things, whether it's
Mhm.
music, art, sports, what have you, anything can be creative if we are truly tapped into it. You are helping others, you are helping the world, you are helping yourself. beautiful
Yes.
harmony. And many people might say, oh, that's quite naive to think that we could ever get out of the struggles. But then also we have to acknowledge that there is an agenda, right? To diminish our creativity. We have to say that at the same breath that we marry that naivety, so to speak, right? We have
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge that there must be an agenda to kill all creative work, all creative thinking, and it starts even before school, right? Again,
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
reiterating it a lot of times when I speak to people. I feel our work that we do by inspiring women, by empowering them in the right way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doing the right thing, we also create a ripple effect for future generations because these women will have children. Most of them
Yes.
will have
Yeah.
children, right? And
Yeah.
they will give it into the next generations to their
Yep.
daughters, right? To their sons. They will teach it on and on and on. Hopefully,
On and
because
on.
this is the most beautiful message and mission that we can be on.
1,000,000%. And, I might be going out on a limb here, but I think in terms of, that there's a creative force, there's a destructive force. We know that this is the nature of this existence, anyways, and you kind of can't have one without the other. There's birth, there's death, right? However, part of what I love about what we're calling the feminine, right, is that, well, quite literally, we create life in our bodies and give birth, right? There is, and thereby, and I think women thereby have there's just this innate understanding of being nurturers and of being life givers, right?
Mm.
I don't know why it's this way. And I don't, obviously there's a lot of deconditioning, like massive, that the masculine at least has been conditioned to be, if not that it's already there innate. And I don't have the answer to that, but towards guns and war and fighting and killing. I don't know why this is. And yet, and this is a massive generalization, right? We're speaking in generals, but this is a general thing. So, like, to put the creativity question in with the feminine and why I believe women are better equipped, definitely as equipped, if not better equipped, than our male counterparts, to be leaders, is because we care and we want to sustain life. We want to give life. We want to nurture life. Women are statistically proven to give more to charities, with equal. I mean, typically women don't make as much money as men, but with what money they have, they give more to charities. They are more philanthropic. They give to the elderly, they give to children, they give to human trafficking, they give to animals. I'm particularly my main. I go to animals a lot. I donate to rescues and stuff because that's just majorly where my heart is. But the point is so like I don't. In a dream world, I would like to think it's. I mean, maybe it is naive based on what we're seeing, but we have to build a reality on top of the given evidence because the given evidence ain't working and we all know it. So what is the antidote to destruction? Creation. What if all the billions and billions and billions of dollars that go into the military industrial complex
Yeah.
were given to the poor, were given to the hungry, were given to housing, we're given to figuring out how to help our environment so that we actually live on this planet and the planet doesn't self-combust. Like, like I get so passionate because it's almost like dumb obvious to me. Obviously, we have a lot to push against, and there are a lot of powers that be do not want what I'm speaking of. But I
Yes.
do believe that the more women that have their empowerment, their healing, their healed selves, men too, but that is the antidote. So it's creativity. in like literally life force and the love of life itself, and the desire to steward life rather than to screw it over, which has been a lot of what we've witnessed on this planet for centuries, and when do we stop that?
So, since we are talking a lot about how creativity is kind of being held down nowadays, we can also observe that people based on that have a specific mindset. Women have a very specific mindset that is, you could say it's brainwashing, you can call it whatever you
Mm.
want, but the matter of fact is that we all are confronted with a specific mindset that we live with all our lives. And in your work, you also focus a big part in mindset. And what would you say are three common mistakes that you see women make in terms of their mindset?
Either they believe in their limiting beliefs slash they don't believe in themselves, and that you see why they go hand in hand, right? Because when you're believing in your limiting beliefs, it's very hard to actually believe it yourself, because the self that you're relating to is the self based on the limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
So again, it's hard to call that a mistake because it's just what people come with, like you said, this conditioning. And I think all of humans have it.
Yeah.
It's not certainly not just women, and I don't like to be like, oh, poor women. That said, women didn't have access to credit cards and buying homes on their own until like the 1970s. So in the United States anyways, I don't know about in other countries, but in the United States, like literally we like my generation are like the first wave of actually having like that level of power financially. And so what I'm painting here is that women have a little bit more of an uphill climb in our society to be able to be successful, right, based on what we've just come from, which is a lot of oppression for a long time. And we talk about this, the patriarchy. Again, that's not my main thing. I really don't love like patriarchy bashing. I don't think that's really the right energy. It's more that just feels like more victimization and like anger, and that has its place, sure. Sacred rage is a thing, got it,
Yeah.
and you got to work through that. However, like I want to be more like empower thyself, no matter what the fuck's going on around you. Excuse me, sometimes I cuss. Um, so, okay, so back to limiting beliefs. I believe we all, as humans, come from conditioning that has a variety of limiting beliefs inherent in it, different people to different degrees, depending on their upbringing, depending on, whether they were given a silver spoon or whether they were, given a harder upbringing, but even those who were given a silver spoon maybe were like really intensely had high expectations on them to be a certain way. All of this, conditioning, religious conditioning, like there's layers upon layers, right? So the mistake is to believe in your limiting beliefs and to not have a way to recognize them and choose a different behavior that then helps engender believing in yourself to be able to do the things that you really want to do with this life. Because if you're hanging out in limiting belief land, that it's not going to happen, or it will happen very slowly, or it will happen right, not very successfully, because you're still essentially stuck in old patterning. So that's number 1/2. And then the other, and this has been part of my journey, and my partner and I talk about this quite a bit, is it's like, I think a lot of people make the mistake of like staying stuck in the how. Well, I don't know how, or how do I do that? I'd do that if I knew how, versus, right?
Yep.
That could be a million things versus, well, who or what? How can I find the who and the what to then surpass the how into the do? Does that make sense?
It does. If you know, yeah.
Okay.
If you know, you know.
Yeah, if you know, you know. So, I think so many people are like, oh, I, I don't have a following, or I don't, I don't, where is my ideal client? I don't, like, I don't know how, where are they? Da, da, da. It's like, well, who do you know that might know that could open the doors? Because I believe we're not islands unto ourselves. Not, we are not, like, not even I believe that. It is the truth, unless we force ourselves to be islands, right? Everything in this earth is interconnected, and every decision we make has, I'm doing this with my hands, it has like a key in the lock, and there's someone who might know someone who then has the access to the thing that you are trying to create. Partially, I'm here on this podcast because I said I had a conversation with a beautiful guy who's been really supporting my music, and he's like, get yourself out there, girl, get on podcasts, connect, like, get outside of your normal sphere. And my sphere is already fairly expansive, but I knew I had to take it even further and out of my normal, whatever this current comfort zone is, to be able to create beyond the current, what's written currently, right?
And that's also
So
something that we are not highly encouraged to do, right? We are
mm,
encouraged to do everything ourselves, right? And that's
uh-huh, especially
especially
in the
like
Western societies, right? In the
especially
West.
for high achieving women, right? You
Oh,
want to
that's a
be
whole
that
other.
Wonder Woman, right? That Superwoman. You
Mm-hmm.
want to say, I did it all by myself. But the truth is, you can't. Like, you
No.
would always have to take what you already have and then take the next step where you see a door could open, right? That's the how,
Yes.
actually. You
Yeah.
take what you have and you look for doors that could potentially open.
Knock. You just keep
And
knocking.
by putting yourselves out there,
Yeah.
actually, right? And taking risks and being vulnerable and being on podcasts and actually talking about what you're so passionate about, right?
Yes.
And not limiting yourself or putting yourself into this sphere of fear itself, right? Or
Hmm.
of limitations of any sort, right? But
Hmm.
actually experimenting a lot with what you have to give, right? And you talk about queen mindset in that sense,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Hmm.
How is it different from a mindset with decades of negative programming that is creating,
Right.
quite
Right.
frankly speaking, mediocre results for people
Yeah.
every day?
It could be so construed as like egoic, but it's not. It's actually like, okay, if a queen archetype represents that sovereignty we spoke of, if again, and my modern queen is modern in that I'm not like power over other. It's a modern queen, power over, like, power in self, right? That then engenders the empowerment of others, and engenders the growth of a society, or the healing of, right, that ripples out from that, like, centered self, queen self. And so having that mindset that's of service too, because a queen is ultimately in service, it's that balance of like, okay, I'm the sovereign being, and I understand what my piece of this puzzle is. Like you said, I'm not better than anybody. Here's my piece to contribute. How do I do that with excellence? How do I do that with self-care? How do I do that with integrity? That's the big one. Okay, so integrity, that first question you asked about the leaders that I saw, is I saw a lot of out of integrity going on. And I was like, yeah, we gotta, and it's not that I'm not human and I haven't made mistakes. I have, in my leadership journey, and oops, and then you always try to, like, go, sorry, or, whatever, you want to remedy that when that occurs. So luckily it's not that often, but I'm setting a very high standard here. I understand that you set that high standard, and then how does a queen then operate in the world? Is she gonna, I don't know, what's an example of like not being queenly in her, like, Is she gonna like stare at her text all day to see if the guy has texted her back? Is she gonna um charge less than, is she gonna undercharge and overgive and not have boundaries?
Mm-hmm.
Is she gonna cause self-harm? Is she gonna think those limiting thoughts? Because if you're thinking like a queen, you're expanding your consciousness. You're thinking, you're thinking a little bigger, maybe a lot bigger, maybe a little. And I teach to the nervous system with my clients always. I'm like, okay, whenever you're ready to charge that much, but how about whatever you feel comfortable at? We'll just bump that a little further. Oh, if you're comfortable doing, one live a week, okay, how about we do two? Or so, right? Like, how do we like, we're always going to just stretch it, but not to the point where your nervous system like collapses on you because you're so freaked out. So I realize I'm saying a lot of things here at once, but that's all part of this queen is like, that's part of the self-care. That's part of the integrity is like, what do I have the capacity for at any given time? How do I run my ship with integrity? And how do I think outside of the box of what society is telling me? That's for sure. How do I think outside of my own limitation boxes that I've either inherited or, like, because we've all inherited some degree of that conditioning? And how do I make the biggest impact with what I have to offer to the most people, the most souls that I can with the energy that I have in this lifetime? And then what does that involve to take each step to do that? The what and
What
who,
I,
and who do I connect with, and how do I, keep going even when it gets hard?
what I love about you, how you just described it, to take it just a step up, right? When it comes
Mm-hmm.
to charging, when it comes to doing what have you, recording videos, releasing videos, any step that we take as business owners or as femalepreneurs, whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
What I personally don't like about this entrepreneurial space is that it is heavily masculine,
Mm-hmm.
and it is oftentimes promoted to get out of your comfort zone, do what's uncomfortable, do 10x of what you would normally do.
Yep.
This is
Yep.
very masculine
Very.
things to do, and men
Mm-hmm.
excel at this, if I may say so. I'm
Yes.
raising a son, right? I do see similarities how
Mm-hmm.
boys, for example, operate and how girls operate. I'm also raising a
Yes.
girl, so I see
Yes.
major differences here.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
love that you recognize the innate system, female system on which we operate. And I
Mm-hmm.
personally truly believe that women should never try to imitate what men do in no way or
No.
shape or form. And
Yeah.
taking this just a step up is what actually is the female way. It is the safest way to build a house, first of
Safest.
all.
Exactly. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's the most secure way to
Mm-hmm.
actually secure long-term success. It's not
Boom.
out to get quick wins or to
Mm-hmm.
have to
Mm-hmm.
quick rich what have you schemes, right? Even
Right.
though we can achieve those, it's not the question of can we achieve that as women. I believe we can, but what is the price if we actually
Sure.
did? And I
Sure.
personally believe that the price is way too high. The price is actually losing yourself as what you have been born at, right? You've been born as a woman, and you are
Yes.
here to kind of have a mission. As
Mm-hmm.
we have explored in the beginning or in the middle of this interview, we create. And the
Mm-hmm.
safest and best way to create is actually step by step, to take
Yeah.
intricate steps to still feel safe. And I think this is one of the most important parts of being a woman, operating a business as a woman. We
Mm-hmm.
should never get out of our safety space or safe space, which I personally
Right.
call comfort zone. I
Yeah.
hate it when people say get out of your comfort zone, which
Mm-hmm.
also is very closely linked to the creativity,
Right.
because creativity is only accessible within your comfort zone. Whenever you
Hmm.
get out of your comfort zone, everything's new. You cannot
Right.
tap into your creativity because that only
Right.
lives on an excellent level within your comfort zone. What
Mm.
men or mainly masculine people are referring as comfort zone is actually a trauma zone where
Right.
people are
It's
stuck,
true.
procrastinating,
Hmm.
having fear around certain things. If you don't
Hmm.
have all these things, you actually are curious, you expand your comfort zone instead of leaving it. You expand your comfort zone, you expand your creative zone, and
Hmm.
that's where the queen lives, in my personal opinion. That's
Yes.
where women
Yes.
can really
Wisdom.
thrive.
It's
Yes.
wisdom. And I think of nature. Again, I'm always
Hmm.
gonna anywhere in my teachings and my philosophies, it's always gonna come back to nature because I believe it's the truest thing that exists. Um, far beyond any man-made creation. Nature
Hmm.
is the ultimate creation. And a seed doesn't become a flower overnight.
Yeah.
And it slowly cracks and it slowly sprouts. And it does a beautiful, in its own time, in an organic time, in a sustainable, like you literally can't like look at a tree and go, be 20 feet tall when it's a sapling. Like nature doesn't work that way. And again, an antidote to our planet's, suffering is part of the issues. We've gone so against nature and the pace of nature, that masculine, that fast, that drive, that like always pushing forward, always, and everybody's just like exhausted from it because it's not
Oh,
actually
yeah.
the natural rhythm of things. And, which, I mean, maybe it is, maybe men have a different rhythm as part of what we're saying than women too. And so for women to really embody their own rhythm, and that's in business, and that's in relating, it's in any, really, anything we do, exercise, um, like, yeah, is really being able to embody that queen mindset that is sustainable and built out of sustainable energetics
Hmm.
versus push, force, more, better, now, that fast, what's it called? The fast rewards thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes, sure. And it does, and there will be these huge quantum leaps that occur along one's path, but we're not meant to be like quantum leaping every second. I don't believe.
I think the most beautiful fusion that we can create on this earth is like a collaboration between those two. When is it right
Hmm.
to be in the masculine and
Hmm.
to tap into it to get things to fruition? And when is
Yeah.
it time to go back into the feminine, so to speak, to actually get the most fruition from that side? We kind of need to have that balance in.
Yeah.
So far,
Agreed.
I have noticed it or would subscribe to it because either one alone seems to be quite rigid, if you
Hmm.
will not
Hmm.
get us the results that we might looking for this planet or this realm, dimension, whatever you want to
Right.
call it, whatever
Yeah.
you believe in.
Yeah, sure.
And I think the
Yeah.
most beautiful creations are those where we actually allow that type of fusion, which goes back to your music again, where you allow yourself to create things that have not been there from different perspectives and energies. And
And back to the mistake question, that what's coming up in mind, and I'm in complete agreement. It's not just feminine is the way. It is equal and opposite. It's just that the feminine feels like it needs to,
mhm.
like let's balance those scales more than they've been. But also that I think a mistake that a lot of women make, and you see it in marketing, and I'm like, apparently that's working for those guys, but I don't trust it, which is just be in your feminine, magnetize everything. It's all just sit on your lotus pad. And like, I'm like, no, there's gotta be some action. There's got, like maybe that works for some women. I don't know, but I like even to create a post about that, you have to like create a post. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just to
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
like, it gets a little absurd because I'm like, no, no, no. Yes, be in your feminine flow, but like when you got to get to work, you got, like there's a certain structure required for that. And so this has been an interesting part of my journey is just like some of the mindset around it can be kind of almost comical because you're like, no, no, like we do have to do, there's doing if you want a business, you know.
I cannot say hierarchy. It's more an order. I will have
Mm,
to call it order. So
mm,
my feeling is that for us women, I don't know how to put that for men, but for us women, I think we need to start with our feminine energy, that manifesting powerhouse, if you will, your
hmm.
intuition and all that stuff,
Shakti, we call
feeling.
it Shakti.
Yes, feeling into
Hmm.
yourself and kind of start there, and then you kind of go into that roller coaster, so to speak, positive one, not the negative one, and you go
Hmm.
into the masculine and actually do something about it.
Yeah,
If whatever you want, you actually go ahead and you find the doors that will open, right? And then
hmm.
you flow back into your feminine, because then you need
Exactly.
to see how well did it work, what needs to change, what do I
Exactly.
need to improve. Go back into yourself, because you need to reconnect again and again with your feminine, with your intuition, with your identity, with what you want to
Hmm.
create, your mission, your vision, all that beautiful juicy stuff. And so
Hmm.
you're constantly kind of doing this kind of
I
thing.
like that. I
and
like
if
that very much.
and if you are
Hmm.
not in that kind of and that's very musical maybe for, but I
Yes.
love it. It's kind of the rhythm that we need to flow and constantly flow. And if you stop that flow, and if you're stuck here, for example, it's very obvious that you lack the flow. You lack there's something holding you back from actually flowing again, right? Maybe
Right.
that's the
Right.
Asian part in me that wants
No, I
that
love it. And
kind
the
of,
figure eight you're doing,
mm.
I'm just all about that because that
And
is
the
the
endless
symbol of
sign also, it
infinity.
never
Hmm.
stops. Yes, it never
Yeah.
stops. And
Yeah.
um, it requires you to actually allow yourself and open yourself up to those two extremes, if you will, or these two
Hmm.
sides, without bashing the one and
Yeah.
celebrating the other one, or
Right.
putting one on a pedestal and the other one
Exactly.
is trash. I don't need it. It's like the worst. No, you actually
No,
need to find the beauty in both,
the
and you
balance.
and you need to find a way to not stop. And I find most important is the pace, right? Which I
Hmm.
mentioned in your music, which I find so beautiful,
Hmm.
because you take a natural pace, which is why you say it's coming from the soul. You also think
Hmm.
about how fast does this song need to be, and you actually
Hmm.
allow yourself to be as slow as your soul in that moment needs to
Hmm.
be to get that
Hmm.
message out. This is the beautiful
Mm,
part
mm,
about it.
mm.
Because if you create a song just to be as fast as all the other pop songs, just to be like on the beat and in the charts and top 10, you would actually be destroying your soul right there and then.
Whoa,
And
whoa.
your whole
Yeah.
identity, you would destroy this flow that you've been born
Mm,
with. And I think
mm,
everybody has their own rhythm.
mm,
And the moment we start creating, again, creativity, creating things that is not in alignment with the rhythm or the pace, right? Or even the timing of everything. When do I go
mm-hmm.
here? When do I go there? It is not authentic. Like, people talk
Yes.
about authenticity all day long, but do they actually
Right.
know what it is? What it actually requires you to do?
Right.
Authentic is not just not dyeing your hair or painting your nails in your favorite color. That's not authenticity. Let's go to much deeper than that.
Right. Right. And I like this because you're speaking at the level of like soul signature. Like, it makes me here we go with my esotericness, but it makes me think of the music of the spheres, and how each planet even it orbits at a different pace and has a different spin and a different yearly cycle, like to extremes. Like, not like, what did I read recently? I don't know. Some planet has like a 32-year day or something like that, like things in the universe literally, spin and operate at different speeds. And so one person's speed is going to be, another's is going to be a little slower. And so I think what we're speaking to, especially in like the coaching industry, is there's this emphasis on
Yeah.
the, and we're going, how about, that, my pace is more like this. If I have a client who's a little bit more like this, cool, I'll support her to, work at her pace. And then anything that's out of that is out of alignment, and then therefore inauthentic, as one way of putting it, because you're no longer just operating from your own sort of instruction manual that God gave you. You're operating from somebody else's and societals, right? So yeah,
And
I really love that.
it's not only encouraged to be that fast-paced spiral, so to speak, in that sense, but also people believe it will make them successful,
Right.
because most people who are successful, first of all, are males, right, who are in
Mm-hmm.
that space, predominantly seen everywhere, because their natural cycle literally is like that. Like, they
Right.
always have energy. Like, they
Right.
are not like women, right? So
Yeah.
they can spiral all the time like that. And so people directly correlate the speed in which they operate with success.
Yeah.
And I think we need to change the narrative, especially for
Mm-hmm.
women, because
Mm-hmm.
that slow pace can create
Organic.
massive tornadoes, tsunamis, what have you.
Ooh,
It
oh,
has
I love
just
this.
a bigger diameter, and women are
Mm-hmm.
not even aware of it. Like, a little
Mm.
twister that twists really quickly can achieve the same success, if you will, success
Mm-hmm.
of destruction, if we talk in nature disasters here,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
But a tornado that has a bigger diameter
Mm-hmm.
can have this same destructive sense, or even bigger if it has a bigger diameter, but goes much slower, right, in
Right.
the rate of speed, right? And women
Right.
need to be aware of it, how much
Yeah.
power is actually living inside of them.
Mm.
And just because you
Mm.
are slow, for especially considering your cycle and everything, where you need to
Mm-hmm.
slow down, right? You
Yes.
can't help
Yes.
yourself. We can't
You
help
just
ourselves,
can't. I
right?
mean, if women do, I think they'll take painkillers and override it and push through. I think that's a common part of our society,
Yeah.
sadly. But if when we are a society that is based around natural cycles, I pray for a future where that may be again. And a lot of women we are working with our cycles and our hormonal, journey that does it goes like this. It goes in waves. It's not straight. Um, and then really honoring that. And speaking of queen mindset, because that's part of it. It's just being like, okay, you know what? If I'm tracking my cycle and I have an idea, sometimes cycles are irregular, so that can be challenging. But for those, with regular cycles, and okay, I'm gonna plan a rest day, or I'm gonna not schedule too many clients, or I'm gonna not do the podcast, or whatever. You're gonna make that a low impact day, we could call it.
Mm-hmm.
A slow and low, because you know it's an important time to really, really be within, um, rather than always pushing forward. And sometimes you just have to, but yeah, this all speaks to this, like, feminine leadership and wisdom agenda, right? That I'm all about.
Now, when you work with your clients, and you have like a whole pool of clients, when you think back about one particular client, and you can feel free to tell more stories, but I would love for you to share one particular success story that you have
Hmm.
experienced with a client that moved you the most as a coach.
Hmm. One of my clients came from um, a narcissistic, like, abuse marriage situation, and then thereby became a single mother. And she was just a love, first and foremost, just one of the most loving, dedicated. She was so dedicated. She was not a client who was going to push back, in the ways that sometimes that can happen. She was just hungry for change and for healing and for her own queen mindset empowerment. She really took to it. She would thank me. She would be like, thank you for helping me step into my queen, energy. And she went from, making something like 40,000 a year, something in that range, as a yoga teacher, I suppose she did other things. And then she started doing some coaching. Specifically, she was working with women coming out of narcissistic, abusive environments and helping them to empower themselves and their business and lives. So it's like, that's part, when I went into this, it was like, okay, I'm a healer, but like, how can I help healers do their best job on the planet? So in a way, I kind of like multiplied myself because I felt like I could do a lot more as a business coach for healer than I could as just a healer myself.
Mm.
So, yay, I'm going to teach these women how to run these businesses so that they can then, help all these lives. And it just touches in lives upon lives upon lives, ideally, right? Get changed and moved from their own empowerment to do their work in the world, right? So this particular woman really took it to heart and she went all the way. And I would say, I think by the time we completed our work together, we were positioning her for like a 300 and like a third of $1 million a year, 300 and something thousand per year. I know she had made something like 120K in 4 months in her business. And this is when, she came from very, very little, struggling single mother. She moved herself to her place of choice internationally. Like she did some big, bold moves. And she did it with this like deep, intense devotional spirit to really change her life. And then again, change her own life while helping others. And that beautiful tandem thing that occurs. It's like, everybody wins. Right? There's a win-win that happens when women like her are like, I am going to change my life and I'm going to heal my life and I'm going to help others do it too. And then those profound results that occurred.
Can you remember the moment when she told you how much she has earned now compared to what she earned before?
Yes. Oh
How
God,
did
yes.
how did it make you feel in that instant moment?
Oh, I mean, just joyful, just ecstatic, just like proud, like she did it. Like you let freedom ring. And also, I mean, if I'm just going to be completely transparent, like I come from a family history where there was narcissistic abuse. Not my parents directly, but before them. Um, and I've witnessed the harm that it does on a person's psyche. I've witnessed, I've spent a lot of my life healing whatever I inherited from that. I'm still healing, I think. It's an ongoing like deconditioning change. So to really see that level of shift in the short time we worked together was just like, fuck, fuck yes. Like here it is. Like so deeply what we have set out to accomplish, I think, together in this lifetime. Some of us who've just been like, we're doing this. We're not repeating those old patterns. We're breaking free. And so it was just like, it was a soul liberation feeling for her. And then just like, yay, it, it's working, This is incredible. More of this, please, for the whole planet.
I love this so much.
Yeah.
Not only because I'm a single mom myself and know the feeling of breaking boundaries where you thought before this is the ceiling, like,
Mm-hmm.
like you don't
Mm-mm.
even know what the ceiling is. You haven't seen that
Yeah.
yet.
Yes. Yes.
There are so many more things possible if you start envisioning really from a healed place, not from your trauma soul, so to speak, not from the
Exactly.
trauma zone again, but really from a
Mm-hmm.
healed space. Like
Yeah.
your vision becomes tremendously bigger than what you
Mm-hmm.
could ever imagine when you are still in that environment that is toxic and making you sick, quite literally. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it is amazing when we can help others do these kind of leaps, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So it was really an astounding thing to be part of and to witness. And it was one of those things like I gave her tools that I happen to have. And like we said, this foundational, okay, what put this in place, you put this in place, because that's what I essentially help early stage entrepreneurs put this in place, put this in place, put this in place. And now now you can go and deliver what your offer is and attract the right clients and thrive, because you built it.
Now, when you are building such a legacy with all your clients, I would love to know, where do you see the future, not only of your business, but also of women's empowerment for the next 10 years?
Mm, mm, hmm. I'm just closing my eyes and like sinking into that question.
Please.
Hmm. Hmm. I see more freedoms for women across the world. Um, Freedom of choice, freedom of financial freedom, financial solvency. I see women believing in themselves, trusting themselves, knowing their capacity as confident leaders in whatever capacity. Um, I was, in preparing for this podcast interview, I was thinking about Finland. Finland is run by, I think she's a 36-year-old woman, she's prime minister, who then heads a cabinet of, it's like a coalition of 5 different political parties, if I understand correctly. And each one of them is run by a woman currently. So I'm just like, go Finland. And Finland is considered, go figure, one of the happiest places on the planet to live. And they have, I believe it's a socialist structure. They have, like, things are put into place for the people in a beautiful way. Medical systems, school systems, like all of that, people are just really taken care of. I know there's a huge history that led up probably even prior to women being in charge, but I cite that as like a future example of more women in prominent positions in the world. Again, and not every woman's going to be like some saint. I understand that, and maybe not every woman is even on the side of like healing the planet. That is true, So generalizations, but my version of woman is the woman who cares about the planet, who cares about the people on the planet, who cares about the animals and plants on the planet, and wants to engender the most good she possibly can. So when I look to the future, Finland is one example that came to mind, of there being more of this prosperity of consciousness and this prosperity of freedom and this prosperity of, I'm just going to say it, feminine power, that in my vision and in my, even though the world makes it hard sometimes to stay steadfast to this vision, but I'm still going to keep it as my vision, that we create a livable planet for all beings. And that the more women step into the balance of the powers, and some of those powers that have gone real askew, and we know that, we start to make things right. We start to bring balance with the environment and with each other. Less fighting, less destruction, more creation, more love. Call me naive, call me a dreamer, but as John Lennon says, I'm not the only one. And I believe there's a reason that vision has, we call it heaven on earth, but it's been planted in my heart from the get-go. And I'm going to keep being a visionary of that version of this world. For my own business, I'm going to keep keeping on. I have beautiful visions for 2024 coming up. I'm going to open the gates. I took some time off from group programs to take care of my own health and well-being. I'm going to, I believe, step forth and open up my next group program. So stay tuned for that. I don't want to say too much right now, but it is everything we're talking about and setting that energy forth upon the planet. Me and my dear sister, Julia Mick, she's amazing. She should be on your podcast too. I adore her to no end. And we had a fun moment this summer. we called our meeting the divine, what did we say? The divine feminine domination on planet Earth. And we ain't dominating. We're like, it's all about the balance. And ultimately, that men remember their role as protectors, not destroyers, but protectors. Hello. Anyways, there's a whole thing. But yes, that this beautiful divine consciousness, love as our root, rather than hate and judgment and comparison and pain and shame and all the things that humans do all too well, that we recover from these default states, forgive ourselves from these default states, and step into higher and higher and deeper levels of consciousness that are interconnected, based on interconnectivity and the survival of our planet.
And
Ta-da!
if your vision is considered naive, now I will be the one in your boat, because I am married to that kind of naivete as well, because I believe that women have a specific capacity to not think in and or, but in and.
And yes.
And this is what you
Yes.
just have spoken to, and this resonated so much with me, because as mothers, if, for example, we have more than one child, we will not decide this or that. Will you save this one? Will you feed this one or that one? We dive deeper into our abilities, into our, like, the core of our souls, to find a solution to make both thrive. This is what we have been equipped with. It's not something we need to work on very hard.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's that innate thing that women, for the most part, possess. And that is the energy that is and will shift our planet. It's like I know it in my bones. I don't think it's naive. I mean, it seems far-fetched given the picture we've been receiving. But the more of us that change that picture, right? Then what picture do we do? Then what picture do we start believing? We've got, like, because otherwise, like, what? Then we're back to emo depressed Bill. We're back, we go into the self-destruction ourselves. And it's not even defiant. It's just my truth. It's just what I know. I don't know how else to say it. It's just what I know.
And you really start creating what you believe in. So if you believe in that with every cell in your body, like, why would that not come true? Whatever you can think of long enough, strong enough, will come to life, because it already exists in your mind. At least I believe that.
Exactly.
So what I believe will come to pass, right? Will come to life. Either way. Right?
Either way. And it is. I mean, that's what's, it's like, there's an emphasis on focusing on the pain, and on the media does a great job of keeping people locked into drama, right? And it's not to say that drama is not occurring, but so is all the other amazing creative things that are going on the planet. Like, we live in mind-blowing times, really, if we sit and think about it. We live, it's a renaissance of sorts of the things that are occurring. We've never lived in times like this. The technologies and everything that's just like blooming and booming. And I believe the greater we align with that universal intelligence and wisdom that's innate at the core of all things, then it all merges, and it doesn't have to be a bad ending. And in fact, quite the opposite. I think we have it all, so to the, what is it? So the disease, so to the cure. And I believe everything we've spoken on this call is part of the cure.
Absolutely. I'm so excited for everyone who will be working with you in the new year.
Thank you.
This will create so many different shifts for each and every woman that will take the leap, that will start believing more in herself, start envisioning more for herself. And I really wish that upon every woman that is listening to this podcast right now, And I want everyone to be braver than they have been in 2024, now that they have
Yes.
been in this past year. Like, we need
Yes.
to take bigger strides. Like, we
Yeah.
need to be braver than we have
Mm.
been before.
Yes. And within our cocoon.
Mm-hmm. And this is
I mean,
so.
again, there's certain steps that it's going to be terrifying no matter what you do, and you got to do it anyways. It's not to stop you from taking those great giant leaps, because sometimes it requires that. And, take care of yourself, and you take your extra adaptogens, and take your baths. I'm a bath
Mm.
queen. Take your baths, get your, do all the self-care as you expand into these greater capacities of your soul, you know.
And
Yeah.
where can people find you to start that beautiful journey?
Well, there is my website, which is CaitlinNaramore.com. I don't know, I can share it in the links, or
I will, yes.
okay, yeah. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, all Caitlin Naramore, Spotify, iTunes, a whole slew of, well, YouTube. I've got my YouTube videos up now. But yeah, you can find me in all of those platforms, through Caitlin Naramore.
And
Indeed.
all the links are in the description, not only to
Perfect.
connect with Caitlin on all her socials, check out her website, which I highly
Yeah.
recommend. It's a beautiful one.
Thank you.
But also listen to the music and feel inspired to open up in ways that you might have not thought you need to open up, or you could open up to create a much bigger version of yourself in the new year. This is a beautiful episode to
Yeah.
not
Thank
necessarily
you.
end the year. I do have a couple of female leaders coming up still this year, but this is one of the most beautiful ways to end this year,
Mm.
with such a beautiful episode that combines music, art, and coaching in one, where we have been living for the longest time of either or again, right? You can either be
Right.
a coach, or you can either be a musician or an artist, but you can't be all of
Mhm.
it, right? And you can't possibly be amazing at all of it. But well, yet here you can see a beautiful representation of a woman, a queen that actually does it all.
Sometimes I wish I could clone myself, because I do so much more. But
Me
we,
too.
we
Where
do what
can
we
we
can.
find that facility, right? To clone.
I know, seriously, like it just cloned me. One last thing, actually, we didn't even talk about, but all of these years of me being a chef, I've developed. I mentioned desserts is my favorite. I do gluten-free. I do sugar-free. A lot of dairy-free. I've just found it's better on my body, so I'll just start there. And I'm creating my first cookbook. So that's coming out in
Mm.
2024 is the idea too. I'm just getting all the elements together before I go into publish mode. But so there'll be that to stay tuned for as well.
You
Magical
know,
cakes.
you know what's funny? When I was actually looking at your website to research for this interview, right, to be prepared,
Yes.
the first thing that I read about you was that you were a chef, that you were cooking with for all the celebrities in this world, and I was like, "There's no way! I need to know more. Like, this is so amazing." Like, food is also very important in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Also dairy free mostly, because that's
Mm.
better on my body as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I am so curious about your cookbook. I will definitely be looking out for it when you
Great.
release it. Please let me know, because
Yeah.
like, I love learning more of how I can prepare meals and sweets in certain ways,
Yeah.
non-traditional, without dairy,
Exactly.
without XYZ, so
Yeah. Yeah. I have
absolutely
I have
amazing.
definitely I've put a lot of hours into making some pretty fun creations with that. So it feels like time again, like here now you guys create, rock these recipes. I can only feed so many mouths myself. So yeah, and hopefully, I hope people love it too, and that's coming down the pipeline. So that, yeah, I would just say, live your dreams, live it. There's no limit except for the limit you place on yourself, and even those limits are malleable, quite so. It's so long as you put in the work and learn, learn to heal and release patterns and find, and make decisions is a huge part of it to create the life that you want, not the one that you've necessarily been given.
I have a new mantra developed this year. There are boundaries, but there are no limits. So you better
Mm-hmm.
have some boundaries, but you better not have any limits because
Right,
there's so much to explore.
right. They
Go
go
for
hand in
it.
hand. They go hand in hand. It's so true. It's so true. And hopefully we articulate. I think we articulated all that pretty well in this conversation. So thank you. Thank you so much.
But thank you for your time and your creativity and your mind. I just love how it works.